Well, it merely started as a report that turned into an impeachment motion that morphed into 11 charges that was leveled by none other than KBC lawmaker, that is Mwengi Mutuse, that led to the impeachment of the then second-in-command, that is Geoffrey Rigathi Gachagua, by at least 282 members of parliament. Then it moved to the upper house, where it was the trial chamber, where senators, of course, debunked some of the issues that were leveled by the KBC lawmaker. Even the accuser got the opportunity to face the accused, an opportunity that led to the impeachment of the then again the second-in-command, that is Geoffrey Rigathi Gachagua, after over 50 senators were in support on some of the charges that were leveled against Geoffrey Rigathi Gachagua. The battle did not stop there. It moved to the High Court, and of course their battle of legal minds ensured that they had to front their case before a three-judge bench led by none other than Justice Eric Ogola, of course deputized by two other senior judges listening to that particular case, and of course led to the conservatory orders that was prohibiting the ascension of the third deputy president, that is Professor Kithure Kindiki, being stayed. And of course that ensured that Professor Kithure Kindiki assumed office, and of course that particular process came to a somewhat of a logical conclusion yesterday, once the deputy president, that is Professor Kithure Kindiki, took over the party as the deputy party leader of the United Democratic Alliance. That will be our focus this particular morning. Also, we'll be talking about the Raila Amolo Odinga's AUC bid, of course talking about what he clearly stated just the other day. He says that we shall not count him out of the Kenyan politics despite vying for the continental seat. That also, and finally we'll be also talking about the current KCSE examinations that are still ongoing. Of course, this is the second week and a lot of malpractices have been reported, with the Education Cabinet Secretary Julius Migos Ogamba clearly stating that the government will be tackling some of these issues at the forefront. Welcome to the show. My name is Abdiaziz Hashim. Stick around for the next 2 hours or so to get this and much more. Also keeping an eye on various developing stories across the country, and of course we'll be bringing to you them live. Of course, we're also keeping an eye on the National Assembly itself. You do know that the mediation team that is currently discussing what funds are supposed to go to the devolved unit, that there is a cash crunch that is currently happening at the devolved unit, will be sitting today, led by none other than Kiharu Member of Parliament Didi Nyoro. And on the Senate side, it will be the Mandera Senator, that is Ali Roba, discussing how much should be going to the devolved units. That is our focus this morning. Let me go to introduce my guest this morning. It is Chris Otieno, a political analyst, and also will be joined shortly by Sami Meli, also a political analyst, to just give us the status update, or what is the mood of the country at a time when the political process that was, of course, witnessed for the last 1 month or so has somewhat come to a logical conclusion. Let me start, of course, on this particular note. Before we go into politics, Mr. Chris, we're talking about the current ongoing KCSE examinations. What can you say so far? It is the second week these learners are sitting for the examinations. What have you deduced so far?
We've seen quite a number of incidences. One leading to the death of one of the students, which was quite unfortunate. We really pour our hearts out to the family and the members of that school. And we also seen a lot of malpractices coming in here and there, reported here and there, and that tells us that we require to do a lot of changes to ensure that we are keeping tabs with exactly what is happening in our schools, and ensuring that we do not manufacture, we do not have students going into the market with fake certificates or things like that, because we know that has been mentioned in our civil service fraternity of a number of persons having fake certificates. So we need to curb these at onset and ensure that what is happening is that we have students who are graduating from one platform to the other on a very integrity platform, and that they're moving on to the next level very well. Yes.
And of course, those incidents, you've just let me highlight them, and then I'll be coming back to you. We have an incident in CI, especially where 13 teachers were arrested in alleged KCSE exams malpractice. Now, the 13 teachers included 9 invigilators who are in police custody after being arrested for examination malpractice at the Nyaminia Secondary School in Gem-Yala Sub-County. The arrest, of course, occurred after the candidates were discovered with photocopied answers of the mathematics paper 2 during the ongoing Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education KCSE exams. Now, those detained during, of course, included a school exams supervisor, a board of management BOM teacher from St. Mary's School Yala, Nyaminia Secondary School Center Manager and his deputy. And also the incident was reported by the National Examination Council, that is NEC, officials who were overseeing the KCSE exams. Now, according to the police report, NEC officials observed suspicious behavior among the students when they visited the school at around 10:15 a.m. during the mathematics paper 2 exams. After conducting search, officials discovered photocopied answers from both a candidate and the examination supervisor, that is Mr. Isaac Wesonga. And of course, as the examination continues, the major story, you can remember this, Chris, is the suspect behind the Telegram group distributing leaked KCSE exams, who was finally arrested. Now, the suspect, of course, is accused of leaking Kenya Certificate of Secondary Examination paper materials to parents and students. Was arrested yesterday by the Directorate of Criminal Investigations DCI officers. Now, the sleuths say the suspect was arrested during a jointly with the Masaba North counterparts in Nyamira. Now, he is said to have created a group named KCSE 2024 Leaked Group, where he distributed examination papers while exploiting candidates and parents. Photos from the Directorate of Criminal Investigations DCI show that the group had garnered 802 members, and the suspect asking for upfront payment to distribute the papers. Now, some of these irregularities that were reported, also there were 4 more KCSE candidates at Shiners Boys High School who were arrested for overstabbing a colleague, which of course, Chris, you've just talked about it, where 4 more KCSE candidates at Shiners Boys were arrested, and of course they will be doing the rest of their KCSE examinations in the police cells. And of course, with the government now clearly stating, Chris, before we head over to a function that is currently ongoing here at the University of Nairobi, you heard yesterday where the Cabinet Secretary for Education, that is Julius Migos Ogamba, clearly stating that right now they will deal with the individual. The punishment will not be for the whole institution. Yes. What do you make of that, of course, at the height of these irregularities and malpractices we are witnessing? I
make a lot of things out of what happened in China's Boys High School. One of the things was a complete failure, the security structure, because I do not understand how a student would walk into a school compound with a crude weapon and be able to exercise what he did. Also, another interesting item is the fact that this student was from suspension on disciplinary basis. I don't know what disciplinary basis this was, but that tells us that there was a growth in terms of the failure of this boy to stick the required mode or level of behavior. And that speaks a lot. We're also quite accurate and clear that the government has now categorically stated that we're going to deal with the individual, because this becomes individual responsibility. Then after that, we can also go down and look at exactly what were the culminations, what were the sagas that culminated behind this incident to lead this student to behave in a school premises the way he behaved, to include almost like a gang approach. Look at the school procedures also. What are we saying? You're saying that they should think of right now bringing in professionals to handle school security and safety, because over time in this country of ours, we've seen a lot of incidences that are bordering on failures in security and safety. So that should be an item that stakeholders must give a forefront look to ensure that we are ensuring that our schools are quite safe and secure for our students to have a better stay, for them to complete their education in any institution of this country. And we'll be continuing with that particular discussions, but right now I want to take you live to an event that is currently happening here just a few meters away from the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, that is at the University of Nairobi, where the National Public Transport Alliance, that is NAPTA, in partnership with UN, have organized an inaugural NMA Matatu Summit scheduled for this particular day at the Chandaria Auditorium. And of course, the chief guest will be the Cabinet Secretary as well as the Principal Secretary of Transport, with the theme is building the capacity of public transport providers to access affordable financing for sustainable public transportation here in the capital. Let's listen into the proceedings.
Empower our operators, because the theme of this summit is about capacity building. We would want to play an active role in that. Through,
of course, giving us a status update on how the transport system here in the country looks like. And of course, let's come back into the studio. We're looking at the state of the nation and focusing on the current ongoing Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education examinations, given that this is the second week. I'm still here with Chris Otieno, who is a political as well as a governance analyst. Chris, we were talking earlier about what it entails when it comes to these malpractices, given that it has been there. Yeah. We have witnessed it for a number of years, but will there come a day when we will see examinations going on without these malpractices happening?
It is difficult to predict that time, but what I can say from this stand is that our government and ourselves, we've done quite a number of things to make sure that we are on the right path towards achieving that. One thing that has been done by government is to restrict visitation to schools during this period that the students are doing examinations, to remove that element where parents could be able to could be part and parcel of this malpractice. And that has been quite effected pretty well. You cannot see parents right now going to schools to visit their children on this kind of thing. Now, we're seeing a different crop of behavior coming in, where teachers themselves are getting involved. We're not saying this is the time that this has come up. We could say it has been there, and this is now another conduit that the government needs to look at quite critically and make sure that it is completely sealed, and we do not have this kind of an arena playing into our next examination, because there are many more examinations coming to this country. So the more we tighten, the more we assess our risks, and the more we tighten in terms of mitigation, the better we are placing ourselves in that trajectory, in that path that we will say in the long run that our examinations in the country as a whole are free from any form of malpractice. It will be a long journey.
And of course, what does it say, given that this is a culture that has been there for a number of years, what does it say about the students themselves?
It basically says what you consistently practice is what becomes your reality. So we need to remove this consistency in this practice of malpractice in our schools. And that requires a lot of resources to include awareness creation, to include punitive measures, to include injection of administrative controls into schools, and many other things. Most important, particularly, is when we look at this education sector from a business perspective. They want to market themselves in terms of we are performing very well. That is an element that we must critically look at, because it could be a precursor to this malpractice that we are seeing in the nation of Kenya in this sector of education. Yes.
Now, would you say now, given that we're changing the education system itself, we're moving away from the 844 system now to the competency-based curriculum, which is the CBC. Essentially, people have been saying under 844 you are cramming all the what you've studied for a number of years. Then at the end of the day, you're putting them on paper. Given that now CBC, it will be all practical. Would you say that the CBC curriculum will address some of these concerns?
It will address, at the same time it might not address. In the CBC arena, we are seeing an advancement in technology. So we are saying majority of the time our students spending the time on their gadgets. If we are a tech industry nation, that would be a very big plus. But because we're still not there, we'll find that our students will still struggle in those practicalities of what they do. They might achieve a certain level of attainment, but this is that they will struggle. You can't compare this student right now to us, who are more in the agricultural, industrial times. We would do things with our own hands. These guys are more or less in the gadget era, and doing things with their hands might become more difficult to them. But nevertheless, it is a good platform for us to migrate from what we are seeing as a cause of malpractice into an elimination and migrating to something totally different. So yes, it is a plus in one way or the other. Yes, it is a plus. Yes. And
you remember early in the year, you just even talked about some of these malpractices and how it will end up at the end of the day of a person's career. You faked your way all the way to where you are till you made it. So we are talking about some of the issues that were brought forth by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, which is EACC. On a number of occasions, you see them clearly stating that this particular person got to this position, like the IBC individual who operated there for a number of years with fake documentation. What does it even say about our country and our education system from an international point of view? How are internationals viewing our education system?
It is going to dilute the credibility of our academic achievements, because we've not only seen this in civil service, we've seen that in the police department, we've seen that in the law fraternity, and we've seen that in many more areas. So once we export this labor to external market, to the global market, and they do not perform as per their papers speak of them, that dilutes that candidature of any Kenyan wanting to take any global position from that point of reference, because of course they conduct background checks, and one of the background checks that will speak negatively to you is how your country has been conducting itself in terms of academic placements, in terms of value addition in the market, in terms of many of those items that go hand in hand with the academic achievements. So that dilutes a lot.
And if you're just joining us, we're just conversing on what is currently happening. It is the second day of the Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education examinations that are currently happening across the country. And of course, the government through the Ministry of Education in conjunction with the Interior Ministry have been able to at least ensure that some of these malpractices have been able to be curbed. Of course, we've even seen teachers being involved. 13 teachers, especially in Siaya, have been arrested in alleged KCSE exam malpractices, and of course even led to a social media platform known as Telegram to be, of course, shut down for a few days until this particular examination period is ended. And of course, the government clearly stating that that has been used as an avenue for the leakage of KCSE examination. And the main suspect behind this particular move has been apprehended by the DCI detectives yesterday. Of course, he named a group, KCSE 2024 leakage group, and that is when he, of course, lured some of the victims he was able to take money from. Now, you do remember that the DCI added that the search of the suspect's premises resulted in seizure of a mobile phone and a laptop that was supposed, of course, tools of trade he used. The KCSE exam, which began on October 22nd rather, with over 900 students sitting for the examinations across all examinations in the country, are expected to end on November 22nd. And Education Cabinet Secretary Julius Migoso Gamba warned those individuals being involved in any malpractices that they will face the law. And of course, Chris, there's this particular notion that many people are fronting. Where are the parents in this? Is it that they were not taught better? Because we've even seen instances where even parents are using their own coffers to ensure that their kid is accessing this particular examination materials. What does it even say about the parents themselves?
It speaks a lot. One of the things you would say that speaks so loudly in this is the moral degradation, right from the parenting and how that has socialized the next generation and the next generation. If a parent is willing to spend some of his or her resources to ensure the child goes through education and passes successfully in terms of cheating, then that speaks very, very badly to that parent. We're showing a very bad picture to the next generation. We are telling them this is right to do, irrespective of what you think. We're telling them it's right to use your money, even if the benefit is the negative direction. And that is not good. We're supposed to teach our children on moral values, moral standing, integrity, which of course is doing the same, doing what you do in the light, what you do in the dark, the same kind of a thing. But when that is not present, when they see, because mentorship to students, what they see and what they do, then this speaks very badly to them. And that degrades more and more, and actually speaks negative what we might see in the future in terms of when these kids take our position. Because soon they will take. And if they take the negative moral values, then there might be more moral degradation and deep diving into very bad morality in the nation. Yes.
And of course, as we wind up on this particular KCSE 2024 examinations, what do you see coming in the coming days, especially when it comes to the Ministry of Education clearly putting its foot down and ensuring some of these malpractices at least curbed? How do you see the performance generally at the end of the day?
I would say my expectation is we see a cross growth in terms of performance across the country. But at the same time, we are saying this cross performance across the country must be supported by integrity. Students are passing the exam on the basis of having been taught and then being able to express what they've been taught on those papers. When we get out of that and start seeing performance based on malpractices, then we are basically saying that we're diluting our education, we are diluting the kind of people we're going to put in the next market, we're diluting our ability to compete in the global market, we're diluting our ability across the nation, across wise, to include even our own values. And that might even result into our education system not being accepted in the global market. And that means something else, which of course is what we're seeing now. A lot of strain in terms of our ability to spend in the houses well because of our lack of income. If we do not have people who can compete in the market to get jobs that can sustain their monthly spends, then we are talking of something different. We are talking probably even an increase in crime levels. These dynamics will play a lot into all the sectors and all the pillars of our national economy and in our country. So we need to curb that right now. The Ministry of Education needs to do quite a lot. Work with stakeholders like myself and many others to ensure that what we are bringing now in our country is astute, is very good, is putting our foot on the front and making sure that what we do in terms of examining our students is being done on the right platform and the right integrity that brings in the right values.
Yes. And of course, that puts a cap to our conversation when it comes to the KCSE examinations, which is still ongoing. Remember, this is the second week, and of course, the government is across the country and ensuring that the examinations are still ongoing, even in disturbed areas, the areas that have been termed as disturbed when it comes to security matters, to ensure that all the students are able to settle for this particular examination to get a fair shot at these examinations that are still ongoing. And of course, some of these malpractices that have been reported so far, the ministry working in tandem with the Interior Ministry clearly states that they will ensure that these particular incidences are curbed at the end of the day. Quickly shifting our gears to the state of the country. And of course, earlier on, if you're just joining us, I told you we saw a political process that lasted for over a month, that started off from the National Assembly all the way to the Senate and finally ended at the corridors of justice. The case of the case of the former deputy president, that is Geoffrey Rigathi Gachagua, is still ongoing. But before we delve into that particular topic that I will just continue in the next few minutes or so, you do know that yesterday what happened is that the current deputy president, that is Professor Kithure Kindiki, took over the UDA position as the UDA party leader, deputizing President William Ruto in the United Democratic Alliance. And of course, before we get into that particular conversation, earlier on I told you we're keeping an eye on various functions that are currently happening here in the capital. Now it is the International Conference on Contract of Agriculture that is currently happening in South Sea. Our reporter, that is Frederick Moki, was attending that particular function. It's all about what is happening in the agricultural sector. Now the conference, of course, is currently ongoing. Let's listen in to the conversations that are happening there.
Here is how contract farming can be done. And also, we have the extension policy. It is very clear.
I do understand now the Principal Secretary for Transport is currently speaking. Let's head over there to the University of Nairobi.
We'd like to see some incentives coming through to us. We'd like to see bus priority measures or public transport priority measures come in place. Implementation. Minister of Transport is not here. What happens with implementation? Minister of Transport is here. Implementation. Too many studies, too many conferences, too many. Can we do something, at least one? That was my prayer to you, Minister of Transport. Thank you, Director, for being around. I hadn't noticed you around. The transition and transformation plan is my last word. Let's have a transition and transformation plan to professionalize the industry. Thank you very much, and sorry for taking time.
Thank you very much, Edwin Mkabana. We now want to go to the institution that carries it all, NAMATA, Nairobi Area Transport Metropolitan Authority. We adjourn.
And of course, apologies for that. That was not the Principal Secretary for the Ministry of Transport. That is Edwin Mukabana. He is heading a transport system. You do know it is very eloquent. It is the Kenya Bus Service, that is KBS. And as and when the Principal Secretary as well as the Cabinet Secretary will be taking to the podium, we'll be going there live once more. Of course, our conversation continues here in studio. We were talking about a political process that we saw a near completion to it yesterday once the Deputy President, that is Professor Kithure Kindiki, assumed again an office as the deputy party leader of none other than the UDA party, and that is the conversation we want to have. You do remember that Deputy President Kithure Kindiki yesterday was named as the deputy party leader of the United Democratic Alliance, where the UDA National Executive Committee, that is a NEC, held a meeting Monday morning where it resolved to replace former DP Rigathi Gachagua, who served as the party's deputy leader for the last 2 years following the 2022 general election. And of course, while reading the resolutions, UDA Chairperson Cecilia Mbarire and Secretary General Hassan Omar said they have arrived at a decision following that particular successful decision. Now, to that particular aspect, let's get to listen to this particular story that was prepared by none other than Giverson Minor. Then we continue with our conversation.
The ruling executive committee meeting of the ruling UDA party held at its headquarters in Nairobi on Monday resolved to designate Deputy President Kithure Kindiki as its deputy party leader.
How are you, my brother? Yes. How are you? Good to see you.
The change of guard comes a month after the impeachment of former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, which was succeeded by Kindiki swearing in as the next second in command a week ago.
I, Kithure Kindiki.
His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, EGH, ceased to hold office of the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya.
After taking the helm of the party, Kindiki vowed to assist his party leader, President William Ruto, to grow the party's democracy through holding grassroots elections and registering new members.
Elections, the grassroots elections that that have been going on. We will again, under the leadership of our party leader and consultations with the party organs, make sure that we proceed with that process of completing grassroots party elections.
Kindiki said he would consult with member lawmakers and promote the ideals of the party in the day-to-day running of the political outfit.
I must thank you for acting swiftly to make sure that our party does not experience any leadership gaps so that we move forward the same way the other constitutional process of the transition in the office of the Deputy President of the Republic has already been concluded.
The UDA constitution designates the president as the party leader and the deputy president as the deputy party leader, respectively. However, sources within the party reveal that Rigathi Gachagua will have the liberty to remain a member unless he opts to resign.
And there you have it. Now, can we say the political process has come to a conclusion? Chris, is that the case?
Yes, that is the case. It has come to a conclusion. Yes.
And of course, with that in mind, now as the deputy party leader, you've just heard the deputy party leader, that is Deputy President Kithure Kindiki, clearly stating now the work is cut out for him. So in his entry, what should be the main focus now?
I think the main focus would be to unite the party. The party has been through a lot of happenings in the few months that we have seen. The last time the president was congratulating the professor, he clearly said, for the last 2 years, I've not had this voice to support me. And that says he's looking forward to the professor supporting his bid, not his bid, supporting his manifesto, supporting his administration, supporting all the government intentions to fulfill their promises that they made during the campaign. So the professor has a very big interest, a lot of things to do, particularly at the bottom of it, at the top of it, the middle of it, support the party leader in terms of his views, in terms of his intentions for the party. Yes.
It has been close to over a month now of intense politicking, and of course we've seen even legal minds battling before the Augustus. Now it has moved to the corridors of justice with the case still ongoing. So how did we get here to the point we are right now for our viewers?
It has been a long process, but I would say from the word go, the former deputy president, of course, carved his way to this. That's from my personal perspective. He got into this platform very combative, not realizing that in politics sometimes mostly it's interest. His interest was combative and abrasive. Even if you look at what happened in the parliament, he did not even have enough friends in parliament to really support his bid. If you compare his impeachment to that of the current president, you see the current president played his game totally differently. He was able to convince a lot of members who even went into that day thinking of impeaching him to change their minds because the kind of rhetoric he gave them, because of his grasp of facts on what he really needed to do and how he needed to navigate through that difficult time. But when you come to the former deputy president, his was combative, administrative, the uniform approach of administration. And that really drew him apart and further apart with the members who would have relied on to turn the tables to his side. And that was his making from the day that he joined that position as a deputy president. Quite an unfortunate path that he took.
Now, the million-dollar question is, what precedents has it set now in the country, especially in the political space going forward?
This particular position in our country has had a lot of, from time immemorial, this position, deputy or vice president, has had a lot of squabbles and a lot of limbos. But we are saying this particular one has made history in Africa and in the world to impeach a sitting deputy president. That has placed our country in a level of democracy that people want to think, people want to emulate. And a lot of countries will be looking at this as a platform, as a precedent. And the holders of this particular office will now need to be very, very careful in terms of how they handle themselves when they are office holders. Yes.
And of course, if you're just joining us, we're talking about a political process that came to a logical conclusion yesterday at the UDA, the Hustlers Plaza, currently located along Ngong Road, where the deputy president, that is Professor Kithure Kindiki, was able to take over as the deputy party leader following the impeachment of a former DP, that is Rigathi Gachagua. And of course, Chris, we're talking about something that has never happened under the 2010 Constitution, and it has happened for the first time. We have sworn in a second in command 2 years into an administration's reign.
Yes, we have sworn in. This has never happened, but we are saying history books are open to be made, and here we've just made one for our country. And we must say right now that even somebody sitting in a position of myself as an analyst and a governance expert, it is that I think we are now in that position where our country becomes easily governable, where we have two persons agreeing on the way forward in terms of where they want to take our country. When the former deputy president was there, it was a lot of struggle, even for people like myself, to read exactly where are we going with this government. The president says this, the deputy says that. The president says the deputy says that. But for now, I know Professor, as a loyalist, is going to stick. He's going to be a very good campaigner of the government's manifesto, of the government's intentions to lead this country, and that's going to propel us, even put us on a trajectory that we can see development coming in this country, where leaders are agreeing on a platform and on the way to go, on the way forward, and things like that. That even project us internationally as a country whose governance is stable, as a country whose governance has a vision for the country. That's very good. But when the former deputy president was there was a lot of division. Both of them were speaking from different angles. He was really putting the president in a precarious position where he doesn't know what to do. And he brought that very clearly in his last statement. For the last 2 years, I've not had a voice to support me. I'm looking forward to you coming in here and really supporting what you do so that we can drive this country towards a good direction. And if you look at the political tenure, 5 years, it's a very short time. And now we already have 2 years down the drain. And a lot has not been seen in terms of cohesion, in terms of advancement. So we are looking at the next 3 years and the years to come, that there'll be a good structured leadership that works as a team to propel our development agenda forward. Yes.
And how do you gauge now the mood of the country now with a new deputy in office already taking over as a deputy party leader? So what is the mood? Can you gauge the mood of the country?
I would gauge the mood of the country that now we are coming from a hotbed of hot politics to a relaxed mood and a mood of expectation. We are saying this chapter of hotness, this chapter of combative politics has come to an end. We are now looking forward to where these two guys can sit down and work together and where the government can actually be very, very cohesive. We're looking at not seeing a deputy president going public and denouncing some of the things that they have done with the president. I mean, going out there and saying, I have no idea where the president is going, does not reflect very well to a deputy president. There must be some cohesion. And I think the good professor is coming up from a perspective where we're going to see that cohesion between him and the president, and that would give us a mood of expectation, a mood of now giving the opportunity to execute on the manifesto they promised us and the many things that they have in store for the country as a whole, because the country is going through a lot of problems, and we expect solutions for these problems.
And of course, we'll be linking to that now with the broad-based government in place. Now, you do know the partnership that is between the ODM party and the ruling Kenya Kwanza alliance. So how will that play out in terms of what we have witnessed for the last few days, with it getting support, especially Kenya Kwanza alliance, on the floor of the House of the National Assembly, on the Senate, and finally, of course, in the corridors of justice, where, of course, ODM does not have legal authorities inside the corridors of justice, but within the National and the Senate, of course, with the ODM giving support to the Kenya Kwanza alliance, with this new deputy president in place. So how are we going to see the cohesion now of the broad-based government that is in place?
The broad-based government, from my view, I think has now an opportunity to go ahead and weigh in on what they want to do as a collective advantage from the two sides. But even as that happens, we're also going to see a growth of another outfit that is going to oppose what is happening right now. But shifting back to the question that you asked, we're basically saying that we're going to see a cohesion in terms of how they want to approach this country's problems, how they want to approach to solutions, and they want to approach to implementation of matters. In the Senate, we will see a collective bargain. Two of them approaching from that direction. In the members of parliament, the Parliament of August House, we will see the same kind of an approach. And that means that now it's time for agendas to move forward and stop the stagnation that we'd seen over a period of time when the former deputy president was in office. Now, this is a good environment for development. It's a good environment that has now been put forward for us to now see an advancement in all that was put forward as prospective agendas to be attained for this nation. So yes, it's going to be a plus, unless politics comes into play. Because when politics comes into play and loyalty comes into play, we can now start seeing other divergent views coming in to derail the collective bargain that we've just attained from these happenings that have been there for the last 2 or 3 months. Yes.
And of course, with that in mind, given that now things have settled, Chris, in the country, the political temperatures, you've clearly stated that now are cool within the nation. There are no more divisions within the country, especially politically, with the political class even singing and dancing to the same tune. Now, is is this the right environment to ensure that the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, is in place, something that we have not been conversing of late?
It is the right time. But you know IEBC is one of the most divisive elements in this nation. So I think it is time for the president and his team to sit down now and find a common ground on the election of this IEBC and on structuring it very well so that it can attract that authenticity. That when it functions not on a bias angle, but it functions on a collective approach or an outlook of this nation as one nation needing to propel itself forward. We also know that that IEBC attracts a lot of political interests. And these political interests in the country are very divergent. So basically we are saying this IEBC is a divisive element, is an element that also brings in diversion in terms of views, and it's an element that must be approached critically and when the right time is. And I think this is now the right time, where we have people agreeing on one way forward or people agreeing on how to approach matters. This is just the time for it and to be constituted right. Yes.
The reason why I've asked you that particular question, with the now matters settled within the UDA party, ODM also settling to ensure that everything, the house is in order, with Raila Amolo Odinga will be speaking off in just a few in terms of his AUC bid, putting Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, the Kisumu governor, as the interim party leader. These parties will be going into grassroots elections. Some might opt to work with IEBC, some might not opt to work with IEBC. Now, with this calmness within the country, is this the right opportunity to ensure that the commissioners who come into office of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission continue with this particular environment? And the other question that people are asking, why does the political class does not allow IEBC to be put in place, especially before a general election? And you do know also it's all about the boundaries delimitation that was supposed to happen. Why do we always lag our feet when it comes to appointing these commissioners into office?
It is basically on the forefront of political interests. How do we want to progress our party's political interests? How do we want to progress the individuals who have interests in our political parties and political seats of this nation? This is the basis where we find it so difficult to form these outfits during this kind of particular times. And it's going to be a tall order, because even as we say right now that politically we are settled and we see that environment coming into play, there are still others who have got the dissident voices here and there, and we are seeing a number of persons starting to coalesce around Honorable Kalonzo, Eugene Wamalwa, Gachagua himself, and the rest of the people. We are seeing that kind of a divergent views coming into play. But we are saying because Kenya's politics is more or less of a regional political approach and tribal approach, we can still see that we still have those very strong grassroots of those areas, and the persons leading these particular kind of groups are still very strong in terms of popularity, in terms of numbers, in terms of influence, in terms of those particular areas that are quite important in leadership of political outfits in this country. So we are saying, yes, this is now the time, and we should just go on, have this political goodwill to have these particular institutions set in place and see it realize its mandate and what is intended to do for this nation. Yes.
And of course, you even heard from our reporter that is Giverson Maina at the end of his story clearly stating that if the former DP decides to remain within the UDA party, he can still be a member, and if he opts not to be a member, so if he's still a member, at the end of the day, does he still have the voice that he had as a DP?
He'll have the voice of one member, but then he had the voice of a deputy party leader. And those two voices are quite different. One voice is stronger, the other voice requires a lot of uplift here and there. So even if he remains a member, there is no quite goodwill for him in the party, right? Because of what has happened. Even he himself would feel this is not the right place to be, right? But we have learned lessons. We saw what happened to the current president when he was in Jubilee. We saw what happened to him. He sustained what happened to him. He rose up. But because the former deputy president lost that kind of a ground, I do not see in whatsoever format, in whatsoever formula, for him gaining the voice that he had a few months ago. I mean, for me, I would advise him to take a leap out of the party and try another outfit. But remember, he has been impeached by the Senate. And that has an implication on the kind of political path that he'll have to follow. Yes.
And we know that if you're impeached, at the end of the day, you cannot run for office. But at the end of the day, we leave it to the court proceedings that are happening at the High Court, then to the Court of Appeal. If he decides to appeal the decision, then finally to the Supreme Court. But the other issue that you're bringing up clearly, there have been talks of the former DP forming another political outfit from the Mount Kenya region. How will that play out in the field of politics as and when and now?
I think when the current deputy president was taking the oath of office, if there are going to be any divisions, we would have seen indicators of those divisions then. But you've seen prominent political individuals in the Mount Kenya region saying it's now time for us to open up ourselves to being led by the other members of our entire outfit. So I think even if he were to form another outfit, we have a very charismatic president taking that, holding that office, all right? This president is a go-getter, is really a fruitful person when it comes to political matters. So even if they were to form another outfit without the voice of somebody like Raila Amolo Odinga or other strong voices that could form a strong opposition, I think when the year of election comes, with this kind of an environment we have right now, that would be a flat-out win for the current president and the team that is going to be by his side. The rest of the guys could pose nearly next to near 0, 1%, 2% opposition that could have no significant derail on the president's and his party's prospects of taking the next government.
And we have also seen when it comes to the former vice president, that is Kalonzo Musyoka, who is also the Wiper party leader, causing up to the former DP. So in an instance where, of course, we know how politics at the end of the day, there are no permanent friends and they are not permanent enemies. At the end of the day, if that will be the faction, how will it play out in the political circles ahead of the 2027 polls?
I do not see in that becoming a formidable force whatsoever, but I see it being a percentage, small percentage of a disturbance in what we have in the country. Like I said there before, we have a president who's very articulate in terms of political approaches. We have seen he's been able to contain Raila Amolo Odinga in terms of the offers, in terms of his support the AU, in terms of how he supported Raila's launch of his AU bid, both regionally and in the continental level. So we still see President Ruto taking a very big chunk of what comes in the future. And we've seen what he wants actually taking shape. And I could confidently say that he was part and parcel of the people who say that Gachagua must go. And actually, Gachagua went.
And of course, those are some of the intrigues we'll continue discussing. Already some of my other guests already arrived in the studio. That is Sami Meli, a political analyst, as well as Shadrach Wamboi, an advocate of the High Court. We'll still continue with this particular conversation where the Deputy President, Professor Kithure Kindiki, who is now also the Deputy Party Leader, assumed that particular role, clearly stating that his role is clearly defined out within the UDA party, what he's expected to take on and ensure some of the programs that are being run by the government under the better agenda is achieved. Now, the officials, of course, gave the incoming deputy party leader yesterday at the Hustlers Plaza an assurance saying that he is unmatched skill will help in taking the party forward, and also clearly stating that Kindiki assuming the role as the deputy party leader at a time when the country is at a crossroads, adding that the UDA stands for unity for all Kenyans regardless of their background. And of course, that is the other issue that even we've heard from the deputy president himself, clearly stating that the country is at crossroads. Is that the case as we speak now?
Yes, that is the case right now.
And of course, how can that be ensured that at least it does not deviate to an area that most, not even politicians, even the Kenyans themselves do not want to go, and that is division in the country?
It's basically for us to have a formidable governance system, which you already have, and we have very good office holders. The president is deputy, and the deputy is quite loyal is going to be quite loyal to the president, and that shapes a particular path that we shall take in terms of achieving what we want to achieve. Yes.
And we can also clearly see that even the 2010 document that has been held all over, not just the African continent, but the whole world, that is the Kenyan Constitution. We have tested the Constitution in an area that we have never thought it will be tested. So what does it even say about democracy within our country? It
means we are opening up democratic space in our country. It means we are exploring other avenues that have not been there before explored. And what comes out of it is that we have successfully exploited and come out of that as winners. And that shapes our country's politics, shapes our country's democracy, or puts it in a very good trajectory that is telling us that we are now opening ourselves into more and more democratic space, and we'll see a lot of that democracy come into play in the Kenyan form of governance, politics, and all aspects of our life in this nation, lovely nation of Kenya.
Yes. And we've seen major alignments and realignments. Are we expecting in the coming days to see them now being intensified with this latest developments?
I cannot say no, and neither can I say yes, but we know as we approach every election year, outfits will always come in. Outfits always coming. So it's a matter of wait and see what comes. But as is indicated right now, we're still seeing that there is a possibility of ODM sustaining itself as a party because of the appointment on interim position. We saw what Honorable Junet Mohammed brought about when Babu Owino was spoke negative about Babu Owino and things like that. And so we're basically saying that yes, the possibility of other outfits and other formations and other realignments here and there will come in when that time comes. But majority of guys will be focused on their forecast. Who are we seeing as a person possibly taking up the next government? And that's where they want to go. Yes.
And then finally, of course, we'll be joined shortly by our very other guests that have already arrived in the studio. That is Sami Meli, a political analyst, as well as Shadrach Komboy, an advocate of the High Court, of course. You can see them. They're having an intense conversation behind us. We'll be bringing them shortly on screen. But we're talking to you, Chris. It's all about what the alignments and realignments that you're talking about when it comes to the DPs changing. And, of course, we'll be taking a short commercial break. Then we'll come back with our other guests. But the conversation continues. We'll be talking about still Deputy President Kithure Kindiki takes Gachagwa's position as the UDA party leader. Earlier on, we were also conversing about the KCSE 2024 examinations. Also, we're keeping an eye on various events that are happening here in the capital. We've seen one here at the University of Nairobi. It's all about the transport system in the country. We've also seen the International Conference on Contract Farmers, that is in the agricultural sector, which has been very pivotal for the Kenya Kwanza administration when it comes to agricultural matters. And that's why the administration now is focusing on increasing the arable lands within the country, especially on the irrigation systems within the nation, which has been spearheaded by none other than the president through the State Department of Irrigation. And of course, as we are focusing on this particular political developments that are happening within the UDA party, you do know that the ODM party is set to have its grassroots elections, with the ODM leader Raila Amolo Odinga clearly stating that if you are able to lose in that particular grassroots elections that are upcoming, shake the hand of the person who has been the victor, so that to ensure that there is peace within the party, and of course focusing on the main agenda ahead of the 2027 polls. Now I want to ask Chris, we're talking about the ODM grassroots election. That is why earlier on I talked about the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IBC. Also in Nairobi, when it comes to the United Democratic Alliance Party, we were supposed to have a chairman that was pitting none other than Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja, as well as James Gakuya for this particular position. We're talking of some of the realignments that will be happening within the UDA party. Aside from that, what will be the outlook of the grassroots elections that are set to happen within the ODM, as well as some within the UDA, because already UDA conducted in some areas. It was just Nairobi that they did not conduct these grassroots elections.
If you look at historical data on grassroots elections for ODM, there have been a lot of violence. You would say there's been a lot of disagreements, there's a lot of heated debates, there's been a lot of heated arguments. I do not think that will go away. That will stay because of the need for democratic space, because the kind of strong candidates that ODM has who wants to represent them. And they'll come out in the open and really express themselves in a way in terms of numbers, in terms of ideologies, in terms of content, in terms of everything. They want to put that on the forefront. And as they want to put that on the forefront, of course, they have supporters. And these supporters will want to see others as wanting to derail the ideas being forwarded by these other parties. And that brings a lot of confrontation. The party leader also in the ODM party outfit has also had a lot of say on who stands where, who does what, right? So I see a continuation of that. But as he takes more and more of international responsibilities, maybe there could be a slight sway on that. There could be that might not be very, very strong as it used to be previously, when he was strongly seated on that seat of leadership. And we could see a few changes here and there, but the culture, like what I've said, what you've done all the time becomes part of you, becomes your reality. That could still stay as a reality for the ODM party. Yes.
And of course, those grassroots elections are set to be happening in the coming weeks, spearheaded by none other than the chairperson currently of ODM, that is Gladys Wanga, as well as the current interim party leader of the Orange Democratic Movement, that is Professor Nyang' Nyong'o, who is also the Kisumu governor. But first of all, we need to take a short commercial break. When we come back, we'll be continuing with this particular conversation of the current political reality realignments that will be foreseeing in the coming days, as well as Raila Amolo Odinga's AUC bid, given that he clearly stated and said something very remarkable, that do not count him out of the Kenyan politics. What does it mean ahead of the 2027 polls? Don't go too fast. Carry on the conversation both on and offline. Welcome back to our second hour. This is a news check. My name is Abdiaziz Hashim. Our focus is still on the political realignments that are set to happen in the coming days, of course, with the Deputy President, that is Professor Kithure Kindiki, now taking over as the Deputy Party Leader. That was our main focus in the late minutes of the first hour. You do know that yesterday the UDA National Executive Committee, NEC, held a meeting on Monday morning where it resolved to replace the former DP Rigathi Gachagua, who served as the party's Deputy Leader. While, of course, reading some of the resolutions that they made within that particular NEC meeting, UDA Chairperson Cecilia Mbarire and the Secretary General Hassan Omar said they have arrived at the decision following a successful impeachment of Rigathi last month, hence rendering him incapable of discharging his duty as the Deputy Party Leader. But you do remember the case is still ongoing at the High Court. Of course, the three-judge bench led by Justice Eric Ogola is still happening. And of course, we even have somebody who has been in that particular case. He is a known figure to you. That is Shadrack Wamboi, who is an advocate of the High Court. He'll be telling us, of course, what will be happening going forward. And of course, also joining us is Sami Meli, a political analyst. And then finally, Chris Otieno, a political analyst. So, Shadrack, I'm coming back to you. The political process, which we even discussed with Chris, has somewhat come to a logical conclusion, but the legal proceedings are still ongoing in the court. So how is that particular case faring on?
Well, thank you, Abdi, and good morning to the viewers and the listeners, wherever they are. Well, I think what we've seen from the current government is that UDA, in one of its, what it has succeeded in doing in the last 2 years, has been to cause the successful removal of the Deputy President from office, which it did. Yesterday, we saw at least the political process ending with the appointment of the Professor Kithure Kindiki as now the Deputy Party Leader of the UDA. However, while that is continuing, it is important that I highlight to the members of the public that last week, on the 6th day of this month, November, we had the Court of Appeal mention, or a mention before the Court of Appeal in an application that had been filed by the Deputy President, former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, which essentially sought to stop the proceedings from the High Court from proceeding. Of course, the anticipation when the application was filed was that the court at the Court of Appeal will arrest the ruling that was supposed to be read last week on Friday from being read, last week on Thursday, sorry, the other week on Thursday. So because the High Court went ahead and read the ruling, of course, creating a road, for the Professor Kithure Kindiki to be sworn in as the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya III, then it did not make any logical sense for us to proceed with the hearing of the application before the Court of Appeal. So what happened last week on the 6th was that there was the withdrawal of the application to stop the hearing of the petitions before the High Court. I mean, I have seen somewhere else where this matter has been misreported. It is indicated that the Deputy President has since withdrawn his case at the Court of Appeal, so he appears to have thrown in the towel, which is not quite the position. So when the case was withdrawn at the High Court, at the Court of Appeal, the application was withdrawn, then we got directions on the hearing of the substantive appeal. Remember, when we were before the High Court, there was a challenge on the capacity of the Deputy Chief Justice to empanel a bench to hear and determine matters that raise substantive questions of law. So that substantive question will now be heard before the Court of Appeal, and from the directions we received on the 6th, will be heard before the Court of Appeal proceeds on its vacation in December. So we got directions. So those directions, we were supposed to amend. We were supposed to amend the appeal, then serve, then people who are supporting the appeal to file submissions, then people who are opposing to file their submissions, then probably we'll be having a date for the highlighting before the Court of Appeal proceeds on its vacation. So on the 7th day of November, It's when we now appeared before the High Court, the 3 judges, you know, my Lord Justice Eric Ogola, my Lord Justice Anthony Mrima, and my lady Dr. Frida Mugambi. So, well, they took notice of the existence of the proceedings before the Court of Appeal and the challenge posed on the empanelment as a bench having been empaneled by the Deputy Chief Justice. So what they decided to do is to slate the matter for a mention next year on the 23rd day of January, which will be my birthday. So, yes, on my birthday they will be mentioning the case to hear, you know, to be informed properly as to what has happened in the proceedings before the Court of Appeal. So that is where we are. I was speaking to Meli, and I think you saw us there. You know, I was telling Meli that so long as a man is alive, you cannot just overwrite him. I mean, even ghosts have a way of disturbing people. And these are ghosts of people who are dead. So if this is someone who is alive, the person of the Honorable Rigathi Gachagua, this is someone that you should not just write off. Remember, when Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi, the second president of the Republic of Kenya, who took over from the Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, when he incarcerated or caused the detention of the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga for a period of about 7 years. I mean, what he thought is that he had finished Raila Amolo Odinga. They did not know that Raila Amolo Odinga will now be contesting for the chairperson of the AUC. He did not know. He did not know that Raila Amolo Odinga will be influencing politics of Kenya as early as the year 2024. When the British in South Africa detained, you know, the late Madiba Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, they did not know that after the 24 years, this person will spring back and become the president of the Republic of South Africa. They didn't know that. Even in Zimbabwe, they did not know that after detaining Mugabe for 11 years, that he will bounce back and become the president of Zimbabwe. They didn't know that. So you cannot just overwrite a man. And please just emphasize to Meli that when you're pushing, when you're giving him the baton, that he cannot just overwrite the person of Rigathi Gachagua.
Okay, before I give Meli the baton, of course, it has been a conversation between the, legal as well as political analysts in terms of the political process when it is involved in the impeachment motion. I'll be coming to you, Meli, in just a few, but let me take our viewers to the University of Nairobi at the Chandaria Auditorium. It is a function of the Nairobi Metropolitan Area Matatu Summit and Expo. Now the summit has brought together all transport stakeholders within this great capital and the country at large. Let's listen in to the conversations at the auditorium. Before the 3-judge bench, before Justice Eric Ogola-led bench, let me go to Sami Meli. The conversation that was happening between the legal minds as well as the political analysts, it was all about the political process and the judicial process. Now, we saw the political process coming to an end yesterday, where the Deputy President, Professor Kithure Kindiki, taking over as the Deputy Party Leader. Will we ever see if the legal minds as well as political analysts seeing eye to eye when it comes to an impeachment process? Is it a legal battle or is it a political process?
Thank you very much for having me, and sorry for coming late. Impeachment is a political process. The legality of it has just to follow the right procedure from the onset of who moves the motion until the finality. And Wakili here is trying to be funny a little bit, but they say you cannot, you don't fight until the last minute. Yes, I saw the Deputy President launch 38, above 30 cases and losing all of them.
The former DP.
The former DP. The impeached, actually the tag is impeached former Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua. A wise man knows when to down the tools, the arms, and say, I surrender and live to fight another day. Unfortunately, he fought to the entirety and finishing all the parameters for him to run for any elective seats in the future. And as it had been ruled before that he would be rendered useless for the next 10 years. Let's see what he comes with in the next 10 years. But now, I don't think the law has...
but I don't think it's 10 years. If you're impeached, you cannot hold any other public office for the entirety until you appeal it.
And the Waititu case, there was...
Until you appeal it.
Yes, until you appeal it. And he still has a position, until chances of appealing all the decisions that were made. So until he exhausts all the parameters that are there in law and gets either vindicated or convicted, he's still convicted by the Senate, by the Parliament, and therefore, being a political process as it is, you didn't need a lot of cases to come up with all those allegations against him. You just needed one. Now that there are 5 that hit him hard, and you saw the senators voting above 45 in all the 5, that means they had enough evidence. And as I said before in the other discussion we had here, we didn't have the benefit of the evidence the senators had. We didn't have the booklets that they had, the modules that they had that were convicting, that were actually all the allegations that were against the deputy president. The few that were mentioned, some were actually, the people would say they were baseless, but in a political process, in an impeachment, it's just like a general election. If we kick you out, you go exhaust your spaces in the courts, but at the end of the day, the people have decided. And our people have not understood one thing. When you went to the ballot to elect your member of parliament, you gave them the rights to decide on your behalf. If our president makes a decision, it is like we are jointly in that decision. So our members of parliament made a decision in as much as they were 200 and something on their side, or 300, or the total 350 in the National Assembly and the 68 in the Senate. They are representing the 50 million Kenyans. And they came up with an issue on public participation. Public participation was meant to inform your member of parliament on how he is supposed to vote. But the law doesn't bind him that he needs to agree with what you are saying. He needs to make decision on your behalf. And looking at the person of Rigathi Gachagua, I know he's a fighter. He will fight till the end, the very end. But looking at the allegations that they were in, the allegations of corruption, I could see here somebody taking a loan of 600 million. And Kenya Power the other day made a profit of 800 million. I think these people even can sponsor this country. And it is sad in a country whereby we still hear of allegations of money laundering, money leaving the country to develop other nations illegally, not even legally. The money should remain here and build this country. So we are looking forward to, as Chris had said before, that the history books are open. And Honorable Rigathi Gachagua has joined in the leagues of the impeached presidents. Actually, he's the first one on that page. If it is written the title of impeached deputy presidents, he appears number 1 deputy on the title. Yes, deputy president. He'll appear number 1, and children will be learning, even your grandchildren will be learning history. As he has made history, he has brought himself into the books of history, but unfortunately in a bad way, and finishing him. And I advise lawyers like my friend here, Shadrach, please advise your client whenever it is untenable anymore that we have fired. Now our gun is misfiring. It is time to step down and surrender and raise the white flag.
Okay, and of course we leave it at that, gentlemen. We had to see what will happen at the corridors of justice. Of course, Justice Eric Ogola is listening to this particular case that is still ongoing. Of course, we have even seen the former second in command, that is Rigathi Gachagua, even going to the Court of Appeal to stop what transpired a few days ago, where Deputy President Kithure Kindiki was sworn into office and became the third Deputy President to take over that particular mantle. Now, quickly, let's shift gears, given that we are running out of time. Want to focus on Raila Amolo Odinga, who is vying for his AUC bid. Now, he made a very eye-catching and eyebrows-raising remarks just the other day in terms of his political future within the country. Let's listen to this particular clip before we go into our discussion that will continue in just a few. But let's get to hear what the ODM leader clearly stated.
So my leadership at the AU will not be one of the same rhetorics where people meet a few times a year and return to their enclaves. My leadership will be pegged on the dreams of our forefathers who expected that by now Africa would roar in one united voice. So here we know every year there's a General Assembly here. The jets come, land, and they move into here. I can tell you without fear of contradiction that 93% of the resolutions which are passed here are never implemented. So if it has become a talking shop, I intend to change that to ensure that all the resolutions which are passed here are properly implemented.
And there you have it. That was the now the ODM leader Raila Amolo Odinga, who has, of course, left that particular leadership role to the Kisumu governor, that is Professor Anyang' Nyong'o of Kisumu governor. Now, this comes after he unveiled his candidature and vision to transform Africa ahead of February 2025 polls. But in just a few days ago, speaking at Ligisa Secondary School in Range constituency, when he attended a Thanksgiving ceremony for the Orange Democratic Movement, that is ODM leader Raila Amolo Odinga, clearly stated that he will not quit active Kenyan politics as he vies for the African Union Commission chairmanship. He clearly stated that he should not be counted off or overlooked when it comes to Kenyan politics. Let me get to start with, we'll be going there just in just a few, but if we go to that particular conversation, just give me, gentlemen, a few minutes. Let me head over to Mombasa, where we're being joined by Ann Mburu, that is our reporter, senior reporter from the coastal region. Ann, good morning, and if you can hear me, what do you have in store for us this morning?
Good morning to you too, Abdiaziz Hashim, back at Broadcasting House, and you're coming live to you from the Dongokundo bypass here in Mombasa County.
% complete, and in the near future the government will be launching that particular bypass that is very crucial for the coastal region, especially for the county of Mombasa and the regions that is bordering the great county of Mombasa. Let's come back here and continue with our conversation. We're talking about Raila Amolo Odinga's AUC bid, and he made a critical remark during a Thanksgiving ceremony of the ODM at the Ligisa Secondary School in Range constituency, where he clearly told his political detractors that they should not count him out of the country's politics, given that now he is vying for the AUC top job. We want to get now how that will come about, given that you do know that the major requirement for the AUC bid is to be involved in your own country's political happenings. And we want to start with Shadrach. Shadrach, what do you make of the AUC candidate from Kenya's remarks when it comes to the country's political systems?
Thank you, Abdi. Now, you know, there is a reason in which we have often referred Raila Amolo Odinga as the enigma in the Kenyan politics. He has a way of mutating into so many things, becoming things that you do not expect. Well, at the very least, it is expected that any candidate who is running for the chair of the AUC must, do away with the local politics. And the very expectations of people is that, even the President of the Republic of Kenya is, if I commit the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga to the AUC bid, then it gives me enough room, enough leg room, enough space for me to just around and, spearhead the discussions or formulate agendas to, for the Republic of Kenya. So, that is the expectation of so many people who do not want Raila Amolo Odinga to influence the politics of the day and the politics come the year 2027. So, when you focus on his speech, well, there is something that probably it tells us. It tells us that he might not actually be very confident in winning the AUC chairperson, that seat of the chairperson of the AUC. That is one thing that it tells us, because for one, if you know too well, and I know he knows this for a fact, that he is forbidden from participating in the Kenyan politics once he is elected as our chair in that portfolio or that position. So if he's very, if he's confident of that, then he will be telling us, well, I think I have outgrown the politics of the, the day, the Kenyan politics. Let me just focus on the national politics, on the international politics or the African continent politics. But one thing I must do, I must give Raila Amolo Odinga his flowers, at least when he's still alive with us. He's a man that I have admired over the years. He's one that, I mean, you cannot just write him off. He has played his cards well. He knows that even this AUC bit, even while he might have calculated and seen he's not going to succeed, he knows that it keeps him relevant, not only locally, but also internationally, for the time being, until a point when that bid becomes, untenable, either because he's not been elected for that position, then he now recreates himself into something else, now becoming a force in the Kenyan politics. So I concur with him that you cannot overwrite him in the Kenyan politics. Whatever he's going to do at the AUC is just another, it's a lottery. He's just going he's just hoping against hope that he's going to win. As he has always hoped of becoming the president of the Republic of Kenya, and then things just, turn out to be, either the elections are stolen or something happens that he does not become the president of the Republic of Kenya. So when it so happens that he does not succeed in that, he will probably be coming back to influence the things that we are going to do. He's going to come here and say, Baba, on the last bullet. 2027, we find him in the ballot.
Okay, Meli. Still on the same, but Meli, you've just heard even from the Right Honorable, that is Raila Amolo Odinga, clearly spelling out what he'll be doing within the confines within the AUC. Among them is to ensure that the head of states, when they come for a general meeting, they just don't come and talk and then leave at the end of the day. So aside from what he said yesterday, do you think he has a clear roadmap to ensure that the AUC gets to where it was envisioned to be?
Now, Raila Odinga is enigma, as it has been said, but also a very good orator. If you had his 3 speeches so far on the AUC bid, he seems to capture the interest of Africans. He looks like somebody who has interest of Africa at heart. If you look at the infrastructure that he steered, and some are even completed, some are on the road to completion, I think he has also interacted with African leaders at a higher level. You see, this AUC seat is a seat that is voted for by the head of states.
Yes.
The 3 kings, the one of Lesotho, Morocco, and which other country? Lesotho, Morocco. There's another country, Swaziland, now Uswatini. Yes, they are among the ones who are going to vote. The Anglophones and the Francophone thing, I think he was hitting on it and trying to unify Africa, if you look at his speech. And going back to the history of the chairmanship, you realize at some point it was Dlamini Zuma, who was from South Africa. Then it came to Musa Faki, who was also a prime minister. That means this seat can easily be won by somebody who has interacted with the head of states at that level. And if we go with the Francophone story, whereby they are saying the Francophones may kick him out by voting, remember there are 6 Francophone nations that are already suspended due to the coups that have happened, including now Sudan. So there's Sudan, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, we have Guinea, and another few other countries that perhaps I may not grasp, that are suspended from voting. And remember, they will have, in the coming months, they'll have the candidates, actually, I think there are 4 or 3 candidates, will have a chance to speak their agenda to the heads of state in the AU. And as they said, Addis Ababa, I would ask to crown it and say Addis Kababa. Baba is going to take this seat. And remember, the person campaigning for him, he has 2 friends, actually 3. He has appointed the former president of Kenya, Bwana Uhuru Kenyatta, to campaign for him. His longtime friend and a friend of Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, Olusegun Obasanjo, and the chief campaigner himself, our president, Dr. William Samoei Ruto. And if you see our president, every opportunity he gets with African heads of states, he makes sure that Baba is with him on the sides. And even the other day, he threw in a rider when the president of Madagascar had asked for some votes for their candidate. He rubbed it in, and you would see the reaction of the African presidents. It's like they liked what he said. And Baba, I am sure he's going to win the hearts of those African leaders. And his lingua franca kind of speech, whereby he throws in an Arabic word, he throws in a French word, he is very fluent in English, and perhaps even in German as well. So he has a way of going for this. And remember, this is set aside for the East African nations. All the way from Egypt upwards, Africa is divided that way all the way up to Madagascar. So I'm looking forward to Eastern Africa first presenting their candidate. Eastern Africa spoke the other day in Nairobi. They have spoken again, and I see them, even their speeches, being played back to back in the heads of states meetings. And I think Baba is going to clinch this thing. And if you underrate Baba, Baba has never lost. For me, I know Baba has never lost.
Okay, yes. It's a matter of wait and see, given that it is still all the way to February, and we have other candidates who are vying for this particular position. But Chris, as a comment on the same, what Baba Raila Amolo Odinga clearly stated during his attendance at the Thanksgiving ceremony in Range constituency, given that he has held another position within AUC, does this give him a much boost when it comes to seeking this particular position, as opposed to the many contenders who are trying to take this particular seat?
Thanks for that question. First of all, let me correct Shadrach. Shadrach, there's no way Baba is going to lose.
No, I did
Please
not
just
say
get
Baba
that
is
very
going
clearly.
to lose.
I don't even know why.
You can't know.
You have
At the end of the day,
doubt of
you
a
still
grain.
can't know. Chris.
He has a doubt of a grain.
Yeah,
he has a grain of
still
doubt
an
that Baba is going to lose.
The heads of state will have the final
Let me
say.
support my fact. Let me bring it out very clearly. Let's go to the economic regions that are there in Africa. We have ECOWAS, we have SADC, we have Sahel, we have East African Community, we have COMESA. Come to SADC, you find francophone countries in there. Rwanda, Burundi, they're in there. Congo and DRC. So that if we look at it from that perspective, that is bagged, right? Now, go to the personality of Baba himself, right? My brother said it so very clearly. Internationally, Baba has a very big reputation. Across the globe, is a very big reputation. Come to what my brother also has mentioned, the root of factor. Dr. William Samuel root of factor. That's a very, very big factor that is going to see Baba rise to this occasion of clinching this particular position, because Ruto is calculated. He has been given the mandate to reform the AU, trusted by the rest of the 54 member states, heads of 54 member states to transform that AU. And who does he think, who can he very well work with to be able to move that transformative agenda that he's been mandated to do? He can work very well with Raila Amolo Odinga. If you go to ECOWAS, Olusegun Obasanjo has a lot of influence on ECOWAS. And he has put him as one of his key campaigners under ECOWAS. So if we look at the path that Baba is following towards this assumption, all right, we cannot say at this particular time, like you very well said, because this is an election.
Yes.
We cannot go there with the absolute. We just go and looking at the indicators. So when I use the indicators that I am seeing here, then I see Baba having a very good path towards succeeding, taking that, right? If you come to qualifications, both the candidates have qualified, all right? They've all been shortlisted, right? But when it comes to the transformative agenda that you want to see, this head of states would rather work with somebody they can talk to peer, as compared to me wanting to transform with somebody that I can instruct. Baba has a peer-to-peer relationship with all the 54 heads of state who are the member states and who are going to cast their votes in this election of the AU chairmanship, right? Also, Baba holds this position that you mentioned, the infrastructure development of Africa, right? And that has exposed him to working with very many persons under, right, the AU outfit. So I can categorically very well say that Baba has very good indicators to throw him up into the leadership or throw him up to winning this particular position. And we just pray as Kenyans, right? I know majority of us sometimes doubt, because over many years Baba has lost elections in this country, right? That is country thing. But if you look at how he launched himself on a continental platform and a regional platform, and the support they had from Ruto on what he's going to do, I can foresee a very bright future for Baba taking up this position of AU leadership. When it comes to rhetoric that he makes here in this country, like they've said, we use the word enigma, but when you come to my tribe, we say Guambo, the mysterious person, right? So I believe that statement was calculatedly made by Baba to drive a particular agenda.
Okay. Now let's come, as you comment, Shadrach, as well. We have seen him making so many grounds, especially talking to some of the African heads of state. We've even seen our own president, that is President William Ruto, doing the same. Even the former head of state, that is President Uhuru Kenyatta, talking about why Raila is fitted for this particular position. And also talking about how Djibouti will be, of course, going head-to-head with Kenya. That is the Djibouti Foreign Affairs Minister, Mahmoud Yusuf, which is seen as the main opponent for the ODM leader, right? This is Raila Amolo Odinga, the former Prime Minister. Given that the Djibouti now is the main contender, aside from the Madagascar candidate that Meli was talking about, that is Richard. I will not even attempt to say his second name because it's very long. So how do we see the optics playing out in favor of Odinga when it comes to the main candidate from Djibouti?
Well, at least from the highlights that have been made mention by Chris here, on the indicators that will probably show that Raila Amolo Odinga has the potential of securing this position. I mean, well, as a Kenyan, probably I would be happy in, and I'm going to just draw two contexts. As a Kenyan, I will be happy that the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga clinches that position and will be, taking pride in one of our son, being the head of the AUC. But again, if you bring it locally, and I know this is in the hearts of these people here, yes. They probably want for sure for Raila Amolo Odinga not to win this thing. Because if he does not win, then Baba comes back home, Baba becomes of assistance to us. Throughout the years, Baba has been of great assistance to Kenyans. He's been helping us in putting the government into check, even without a portfolio. So really, with his absence from the Kenyan politics, I know it becomes we have a lacuna, we have a gap in the Kenyan politics because we've not had any other person rise to the levels that he has risen, triumphing or winning through the struggles that he has won to make him the enigma that he has become. So on one hand, when we will want to wish him well, on the other hand, you will want him to just fail so that he comes back home and helps us in putting this government into check. There is so many things that are not going on well. And probably his input or his contribution in whatever is happening in Kenya right now may be very instrumental. We want him to be uncomfortable as he has always been, to be unhappy about, these rampant corruption cases that we are experiencing every now and then, the kind of scandals that you hear every now and then. It has become so characteristic of us. Nowadays, we are not even shocked, when we see a scandal in the headlines. These scandals are not nowadays, attracting buyers to buy the newspapers, because for sure that either today we are either dealing with one, tomorrow we are dealing with another one, today we have something else. So we are not so much shocked about the scandals. I think what we want is someone who can help us in filling the gap that will be left or will be left. I did not say that Raila Amolo Odinga is going to lose. What I said is probably going by his own sentiments, saying that you should not overwrite him in the Kenyan politics. It's just also another indicator, as Chris has put it, to demonstrate to us that he has, as the person who is inside looking outside, unlike Chris who is outside looking inside, he has seen from the analysis of his cards, he's seen that he does not have the high chances of securing the win as against his Djibouti counterpart. Because from the analysis that you hear everywhere is that the Djibouti counterpart, he has made very strong inroads. And depending on Olusegun Obasanjo, an already spelled bullet, might not bring him so much.
Okay, Chris, now you can respond.
I want to support this candidate of Baba from two perspectives. One, religion, and the next thing, language. If you look at the way African states are structured from a religious perspective, right? We have 18 countries, passed over as Muslim countries. And then we have the other balance, which is about 36 passed as Christian countries. For him to clinch this position, he must win 2/3 of the 54 states, which is 35. right? And like you mentioned, a number of Anglophone countries, of course, are in us because of these blocks of trade, right? So from me, where I am seated, from those two angles, looking at it from those two angles, Baba has a good path, good indicator. It's not good to call Olusegun Obasanjo spent bullet. No, even spent bullets can hurt in terms of burning you, right? So what we are saying here is basically that Baba has a very good and clear path towards clinching this position. The statement that he made, let us not concentrate on one statement. Let's not concentrate on one statement. And if you look at his inauguration, I mean, when he was launching his continental campaign, he said, what I see is a problem of AU, which has global importance. We've just joined G27, group of 20, G20, and we have an international outplay of AU in global affairs, right? So we are saying that Baba says that he has seen the frustrations of his predecessors in that office. They come discuss very many issues, but there's no been implementation, right? So he's riding on that wave that if you give me this position, I have that influence from my country. I've influenced the political landscape of my country, and I've been able to spearhead my country's political interests and economic interests towards the global agenda, and they've been successful, right? If you go to Djibouti, we can say in the last 10 years, Djibouti has jinxed Kenyan interest in very many ways. In 2017, Amina Mohamed wanted this position. What did Djibouti do? There was a foreign candidate. When we were going to get this position, the UN Security General Assembly Council, Djibouti also forwarded another candidate to oppose Kenya. Right? So we are seeing that the problem of Djibouti towards our country's interest in the global arena has always been there. So even this one that we are seeing right now, Kenya will overcome it. And we have a very clear path that we are seeing ahead of us for Raila Amolo Odinga to clinch this position, and then from there, right, as an advisory, he still has his influence in Kenyan politics.
Okay. But Chris, let me allow Meli to have the last laugh, because we need to finalize on this conversation. I want to prick your minds on whatever happened in the United States.
Yes, this voting is not a one-round vote. The last vote you saw, it went to round 7, and 16 of our supporters abstained. You can imagine the energy that is needed to keep those presidents seated there to vote until the last round. But I'm just imagining how much budget has been put there to ensure that Baba wins, because it also has a budget, which the African Union has to vet. So I'm looking at Baba making a historical moment by giving his first shot and getting it. Musa Faki had worked with AU for quite some time before he ran for that position. Baba has been working with them. The Djiboutian guy has never worked with AU. And you can imagine a situation whereby the two have to go head to head. In the first, second, third, you see, as the others drop out, they do the first voting, they realize this candidate doesn't have a following, they remove that one, then they let the others with the higher following to go to the next rounds until the two remain, and there's a clear victory. We are hoping there will be enough energy for that, remembering that most of the African leaders are aged. And you can imagine Tinubu, the one of Nigeria, sitting the whole day until midnight. You see, that can easily fall out. So we would want to make sure that President William Ruto and the Foreign Affairs PS, Dr. Singoe, Abraham Singoe, they are doing a great job. But Baba needs to go out often, even on his own, make state visits, beg for those votes, because there are just 55 countries. If he does shuttle diplomacy between now and then, he would be able to clean that position, and they will not need to go for the 7 rounds.
Okay, quickly, gentlemen, given that we are running out of time, let me start with you, Shadrach. There was a clear victor in the United States election. That is Donald Trump, who's now coming back as the 47th president of the United States. So what does that win symbolizes for Kenya and Africa as a whole?
Well, let me take this opportunity to congratulate or pass my message of facilitation to the President Donald Trump, the President-elect of the United States of America. I think it has just demonstrated to us that people are just keen on leaders that speak their language. You know, Trump is not the person that you will find with the long written scripts, you know, the speeches that he will want to read and make people, you know, smile or happy about certain things. No, this is a person who has come out clearly to tell us that he will always speak what is in his mind, what he thinks the people believe in, what he thinks the people will accept. And you've seen by the rejection of you know, the deputy president of the current administration in the United States of America, that was just clear that the government of the day has just fallen out of favor with the people of the United States of America. So to that extent, I think even the leadership of the country should know that it is possible to be a one-term president. It is possible that you will fall out of favor with the people of the Republic of Kenya.
Shadrach, you're deviating. I asked
no,
what
the
is
influence.
What is it?
Yes.
What is
I mean, you see, there are lessons.
Trump has taken over.
Yes, there are lessons that we need to borrow first from what has happened there.
Okay.
Then I know for sure that there are certain things that are going to change in the manner in which we deal as a country. Because we've depended so much. We took the United States of America as our ally so that we could succeed in so many things. I mean, for one, you know that there has been a lot of dissatisfaction with the prescription of the LGBTQ in the Republic of Kenya.
Yes.
And we know that the Biden administration was supporting, you know, this, you know, people who are said to be in wrong bodies, that you are a man, but you are born a woman. So really, you now get into some scientific process to transform you from a man to a woman, so that your former classmate, or my former classmate in Maseno School, a gentleman that probably I studied with, I meet him in town wearing women clothes. Now, and you know that is what the Biden administration supported. But now we've seen clearly from the speeches made by the President Donald Trump, the president-elect, that he's keen on promoting, if we have male, we have female, we do not want to entertain a situation where you will be, you know, socializing children to believe that they are captured or jailed in wrong bodies.
Okay.
Yes.
Meli, quickly.
Yes. One lesson I draw from America is that of conceding defeat. Once you have been defeated, remember, it is not just a normal person. This is a deputy, a vice president of the United States conceding defeat. Number two, we are looking forward to Donald Trump going back on some agreements that perhaps our presidency had made with the U.S., especially on AGOA, on the U.S. aid we usually receive. Remember, Donald Trump is not pro-African. And we're also looking forward to receiving our uncles, our aunts, our sisters and brothers who have hidden in the streets of America. He said he's going to do a very big deportation. I hope our brothers and sisters in the U.S. have their papers intact.
That's not certain, so we can't tell yet until he takes over office next year. Quickly. Chris?
For me, I'm really glad that Trump took over that office, because we need to see a new world order. There are so many conflicts in the globe, some of them pitting us religiously and some of them going to the wrong direction. I think with what the both gentlemen have said, we need Trump to have some change in the order. We want to have our imported grain from Ukraine, get it to our country to lower the price of food and the price of foodstuffs to our nation. We want to have as much support as we can from the U.S. in terms of militarily, in terms of economic trade, in terms of trade, and all this support that we get from that. We need our Kenyan students to go to the U.S. and study with the modern kind of technology. So we need America's support in terms of advancements in technology and all other sectors that technology plays a very key part in. So with Trump's ascension to the top office of the USA, we expect, and we are very happy to learn that our president was the third person to be called, third president of Africa to be called by Trump. So that means that Kenya is eleven in terms of recognition by the US, and that's really glad and really good for me.
Okay, thank you so much, German.
Okay, invited to the swearing.
We've just run out of time. That is Chris Otieno, a political and governance expert. We have Sami Meli, a political analyst, as well as a governance expert. And then finally, Shadrach Omboi, an advocate of the High Court. Gentlemen, thank you for making time for us this morning. That concludes our show. But don't go too far. Our very own Sheila is up next with Kurunzi Mashinani, and of course, taking you through some of the stories that are making headlines during this particular hour. My name is Abdiaziz Hashim. Good morning for now.
Bye.